What's happening? She stammered, trying to stand up. You wanted money, Chik replied, his voice transforming into a menacing growl. But there's a price to pay. In the bustling heart of Lagos, where the heat of the day gives way to the vibrant rhythms of night, lived a young woman named Adiz. She was known in her community as a beacon of hope and resilience, always wearing a smile despite the mounting pressures that life threw her way. Adiz had always been a good girl. She worked diligently at her job as a secretary, attended church regularly, and took care of her family. Her father, once a strong and hard-working man, had been bedridden for months with a mysterious illness. The medical bills were piling up, and with each passing day, her father's condition seemed to worsen. Her younger siblings looked up to her for everything. As the eldest, she was responsible for their school fees, clothing, and meals. They adored her, but the constant demand for money weighed heavily on her shoulders. One evening, Adiz returned home after a long day at work. The tiny apartment she shared with her family was dimly lit. Her father lay on a mattress in the living room, his breathing labored. Her siblings, Chinelo, Chikudi, and Ugochi, were huddled around a small table, doing their homework by the faint light of a single bulb. Big sister, welcome, Chinelo greeted, looking up from her books with a weary smile. Thank you, my dear, Adiz replied, forcing a smile of her own. She walked over to her father and knelt beside him. Papa, how are you feeling today? Her father opened his eyes slowly and managed a weak smile. Adiz, my angel. I am fighting, but it is hard. How was your day? It was fine, Papa. Don't worry about me. We will get through this, she said, trying to infuse her voice with more confidence than she felt. As she stood up, Chikudi approached her, his eyes wide with concern. Sister, will we have enough money for school fees next term? My teacher said if I don't pay, I can't write my exams. Adiz's heart sank. She didn't have an answer for him. We will find a way, Chikudi. Just focus on your studies for now, okay? Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, Adiz sat alone, staring at the stack of bills on the small kitchen table. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she quickly brushed them away. She had to be strong. She couldn't afford to break down. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from Neca, her closest friend. Ada, let's go out tonight. You need a break. Meet me at the club. Adiz hesitated. She hadn't been out in months, but the thought of escaping her worries for just a few hours was tempting. She sighed and typed a quick reply, okay. See you there. The club was alive with energy. The music was loud, and the air was thick with the scent of perfume and sweat. Adiz felt out of place at first, but Neca's infectious enthusiasm soon had her laughing and dancing. As they moved to the beat, a tall, dark man with a mysterious aura approached them. He introduced himself as Chik, his smooth voice barely audible over the music. May I have this dance? He asked Adiz, extending his hand. She hesitated, glancing at Neca, who gave her an encouraging nod. Go ahead, Neca said with a grin. Have some fun. Adiz took Chik's hand, and they moved to the rhythm of the music. There was something about him that intrigued her, a magnetic pull she couldn't resist. Tell me about yourself, Adiz, Chik said as they danced. There's not much to tell, she replied with a shrug. I work, take care of my family, and try to make ends meet. Chik's eyes sparkled with interest. A woman of strength and responsibility. I admire that. Adiz blushed, not used to such attention. Thank you. What about you? I'm a businessman, Chik said smoothly. I travel a lot and have seen many places. But tonight, I'm here, and I'm glad I met you. They danced and talked for hours. As the night drew to a close, Chik leaned in closer and whispered, Adiz, I have an offer for you. Come with me to my place, and I will give you 1 million naira. Adiz's heart skipped a beat. 1 million naira. That kind of money could solve all her problems. But she barely knew this man. Her mind raced as she considered the possibilities. Sensing her hesitation, Chik added, You don't have to decide now. Think about it. Here's my card. Adiz took the card, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. As she and Neca left the club, her friend noticed her distracted state. Ada, what did that guy say to you? Neca asked. Adiz hesitated before replying. He offered me 1 million naira to go home with him. Neca's eyes widened in shock. Are you serious? You can't be considering this. You don't even know him. What if it's a trap? I know, Adiz said, her voice wavering. But Neca, think about it. 1 million naira could change everything for my family. Papa needs treatment, and my siblings need school fees. Neca shook her head, concern etched on her face. Ada, no amount of money is worth your safety. Please, don't do this. The next day, as Adiz sat at her desk at work, Chik's offer weighed heavily on her mind. She looked at the card he had given her, the glossy surface catching the light. Her phone buzzed with a message from Neca, remember, be smart. Your safety comes first. Adiz sighed, knowing her friend was right, but the desperation in her heart was hard to ignore. That evening, she returned home to find her father in worse condition than before. The sight of him struggling to breathe broke her heart. Papa, she whispered, holding his hand. I promise I will find a way to help you. As night fell, Adiz made up her mind. She dialed the number on Chik's card. He answered almost immediately, his voice as smooth as she remembered. Adiz, I'm glad you called. Have you made a decision? Yes, she said, her voice steady. I'll come with you. Excellent, Chik replied. I'll send a car to pick you up. Adiz told her siblings she was going to see a friend and left the apartment, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. The car arrived, and she was driven to Chik's luxurious apartment in a secluded part of town. As they entered the dimly lit house, Chik offered her a drink. You must be thirsty. Here, have some wine. Adiz accepted the glass, taking a sip to steady her nerves. Chik led her down a dark corridor to his bedroom. The air felt thick and heavy, and Adiz's unease grew. Sit, Chik said, motioning to a chair. He stood in front of her, his eyes fixed on hers. I must tell you something, Adiz. This money you seek comes with a price. Before Adiz could react, Chik's eyes began to glow a sinister red. She gasped, dropping her glass as fear gripped her heart. Chik, what's happening? She stammered, trying to stand up. You wanted money, Chik replied, his voice transforming into a menacing growl. But there's a price to pay. Suddenly, from his glowing eyes, 2 enormous pythons began to emerge, their scales glistening as they slithered down his face. Adiz screamed, the sound piercing the oppressive silence of the house. No, this can't be real, she cried, backing away. The pythons hissed loudly, sensing her fear. Chik's voice echoed behind her, cold and mocking. You can't escape now, Adiz. You're mine. Adiz's heart pounded in her chest as she dashed through the corridor, her breath coming in short, terrified gasps. She glanced back and saw the pythons closing in, their massive bodies writhing with sinister intent. She reached the living room and saw the front door, her only chance of escape. With a surge of adrenaline, she sprinted towards it, but the door seemed to be miles away. One of the pythons lunged, its fangs barely missing her ankle. Summoning every ounce of strength, Adiz leaped forward and flung open the door, the cool night air hitting her like a wave of relief. She stumbled out into the darkness, not daring to look back. The sounds of hissing and Chik's laughter echoed behind her. She ran until her legs felt like they would give out, finally collapsing on a quiet street far from Chik's house. Trembling, she pulled out her phone and dialed Neca's number. "Neca, please come get me," she sobbed, her voice barely above a whisper. I need help." Neca arrived within minutes, her face a mix of worry and relief. She hugged Adiz tightly. "What happened? Are you okay?" Adiz nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm okay now, but it was horrible, Neca. He wasn't human. There were pythons coming out of his eyes." Neca's eyes widened in shock and disbelief, but seeing Adiz's terrified state, she knew her friend was telling the truth. "We need to get you home," Neca said softly. "You're safe now." As they drove back to the small apartment, Adiz recounted the horrifying events. Neca listened in silence, her grip tightening on the steering wheel. When they finally arrived, Adiz's siblings rushed to her side, their faces etched with worry. "Big sister, are you okay?" Chik asked, his voice trembling. Adiz managed a weak smile, pulling them into a hug. "I'm fine now, but we need to talk." She gathered them around the small kitchen table and told them everything. Her father's eyes filled with tears as he listened. "I'm so sorry, Adiz," he said weakly. "This is all because of my illness. If I weren't sick, you wouldn't have to go through this." "No, Papa," Adiz said firmly, holding his hand. "This is not your fault. I made a mistake, but we are a family, and we will find a way through this together." The next few days were a blur of tension and fear. Adiz couldn't shake the image of Chik and the pythons from her mind. She barely slept, and when she did, her dreams were filled with red eyes and hissing snakes. One evening, as she sat by her father's bedside, he reached out and touched her hand. "Adiz, you are my strength. You have been carrying this burden alone for too long. It is time to seek help." "What do you mean, Papa?" Adiz asked, puzzled. "There is a man, a healer, in our village. His name is Baba Olu. He has helped many people. Perhaps he can help us too." Adiz was skeptical, but the desperation in her father's eyes convinced her to try. The next morning, she and Neca set out for the village. The journey was long, and the roads were rough, but Adiz's determination kept her going. When they finally arrived at Baba Olu's modest home, they were greeted by an elderly man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. "Welcome, my children. I have been expecting you." "Expecting us?" Neca asked, surprised. Baba Olu nodded. "The spirits have spoken. Come, let us sit and talk." As they sat in the healer's small, cluttered living room, Adiz told him everything. Baba Olu listened intently, occasionally nodding or murmuring to himself. "Chik is not an ordinary man," Baba Olu said finally. "He is a sorcerer, one who preys on the desperation of others. But fear not, for the spirits have shown me a way to break his hold on you." Adiz felt a glimmer of hope. "What do we need to do?" Baba Olu handed her a small pouch filled with herbs and powders. Tonight, you must burn these in your home. The smoke will protect you and your family from Chik's influence. But this is only the beginning. You must also confront him and break the curse he has placed on you. Adiz's heart sank. Confront him? But how? You must return to his home and perform a ritual. It will be dangerous, but you are not alone. The spirits will guide you. Neca squeezed Adiz's hand. We can do this together. That night, Adiz and Neca followed Baba Olu's instructions. They burned the herbs in the apartment, filling it with a thick, fragrant smoke. As the smoke wafted through the rooms, Adiz felt a strange sense of peace wash over her. The next day, they prepared to confront Chik. Baba Olu gave them a small wooden box filled with various ritual items. This will help you break the curse. Remember, you must have faith and be strong. As they approached Chik's apartment, Adiz's heart pounded in her chest. The memory of the pythons was still fresh in her mind, but she knew she had no choice. She had to protect her family. They knocked on the door, and it opened almost immediately. Chik stood there, his eyes cold and calculating. Adiz, he said with a sneer. I didn't expect to see you again. We're here to break the curse, Adiz said, her voice trembling but resolute. Chik laughed, a low, sinister sound. You think you can break my power? You're a fool. But Adiz stood her ground. She took out the items from the wooden box and began the ritual, chanting the words Baba Olu had taught her. The air around them grew thick with tension as Chik's eyes began to glow red again. Suddenly, the pythons emerged, hissing and writhing. Neca stood beside Adiz, holding her hand tightly. We can do this, she whispered. As the ritual continued, the pythons began to thrash violently, their bodies twisting and turning. Chik's laughter turned to screams as the power of the ritual took hold. The room was filled with a blinding light, and then, just as suddenly, everything went silent. When the light faded, Chik was gone. The pythons had vanished, and the apartment was eerily quiet. Adiz and Neca stood there, trembling but victorious. We did it, Adiz whispered, tears streaming down her face. We broke the curse. They returned home, exhausted but relieved. Adiz's father was waiting for them, his face filled with hope. Did it work? Yes, Papa, Adiz said, hugging him tightly. It's over. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Baba Olu visited the apartment, performing additional cleansing rituals to ensure Chik's influence was completely gone. Slowly, life began to return to normal. Adiz's father started to improve, his strength returning day by day. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Adiz turned to her siblings. I want you all to remember something. No matter how hard things get, we must always stay together and protect each other. Money can never replace the love and safety of our family. Chikudi nodded solemnly. We understand, big sister. We will always be there for each other. As the months passed, Adiz continued to work hard, but the burden on her shoulders felt lighter. She knew she had the strength and support of her family and friends. And while the memory of that night would always stay with her, it was a reminder of the resilience and courage that defined her. One afternoon, as she walked home from work, Adiz felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. She had faced the darkness and come out stronger. The city of Lagos continued to pulse with life, and so did Adiz, her spirit unbroken and her heart full of hope.